Hello. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me okay. I'm having mic issues, so we're just relying on the mic from the iPhone today. I wanted to pop in really quick and do a brief discussion around intra-abdominal pressure. What is it? What can impact it? And then hopefully give you a little visual using a balloon and my trusty little pelvis model here. So let's start out with what is intra-abdominal pressure, often shortened as I.A.P, especially in writing. So intra-abdominal pressure is basically the pressure that we experience here in our abdominal cavity. So it's in the abdominal cavity pressure that takes place here. And the amount of intra-abdominal pressure, where our body experiences those pressures, that load of that pressure, can be impacted by things like how we hold our body, our posture, how we breathe, like what is expanding, what is experiencing tension, what is moving, what isn't moving while we breathe, and also while we move, so our movement patterns. It can also be affected by things going on inside of our body, such as our digestion, whether we're experiencing bloating, constipation, things like that. And so if you go further up, the line from there, then like our nutrition can impact it, how well hydrated we are, what stressors we're experiencing, our nervous system state. All of these things can be interconnected, interwoven with the experience of the pressure that we're experiencing in our abdominal cavity, aka our intra-abdominal pressure, I.A.P. So this is a lovely model of a pelvis. You can see here the base of the spine, tailbone, our sits bones, the hip joints here. Wow. The ASIS. So these are going to be like our upper kind of sticky outy hip bones. When someone puts their hands on their hips, they're often right here. And down in here rests the lower part of our core and pelvic floor kind of unit. So pelvic floor, the lower kind of base of it is here, but it also comes up here, connects with all of the musculature and tissues and other bony structures of our spine, as well as like our diaphragm and our psoas, which are kind of come up this way, and the pelvic floor. They're all interwoven. And so that's an important thing to remember as we discuss intra-abdominal pressure. So just as a visual here, using a little happy birthday balloon. Happy birthday. So I'm just going to set it in here, not to scale. This would be much larger on a human being. But you can kind of see, like, let's imagine an example. So if when we breathe, our rib cage here, especially the lower rib cage, is really locked down. It's not moving. It's not moving from side to side. It's not moving from front to back. If it's really locked down, that's going to create pressure on the upper part of our core and our pelvic floor. So our diaphragm may be experiencing tension. We may struggle to release our diaphragm, which is up here. That's a muscle that it massages our hearts and our lungs every time we move and breathe. It's really, really important. Allows us to experience an embodied sense of safety. So let's imagine that either because when we breathe, our ribs are just not moving, they're locked down, or even, we're kind of rolled in like this. So many of us have this pattern. This is not a judgment against being like this, just something that is sometimes, and sometimes often. This is my own pattern sometimes, for sure. We experience kind of this rolling in, this like condensing of the, entire area. That is going to place a lot more pressure. If you can kind of see the balloon, where does that pressure go? Yeah, so it's going to cause more pressure along the front wall, especially of the abdomen, because we have the spine and our ribs on the back. So it's going to limit the availability of the back of our kind of core canister here. So that's going to be kind of forced. It's a little bit more rigid. There's less ability to adapt to pressure from up here. So where does it go, right? So it's mostly going to end up towards the front and down low. So down into the bowl of our pelvis, into the muscles of our pelvic floor down here, as well as the front wall of the abdomen. Now let's imagine we're wearing what I call hard pants. Other people also call them that, where they're really restrictive around our belly. Or maybe it's shapewear because we want to have a certain profile in a certain outfit or something like that. Again, not a judgment of like morality or wrong or right, but let's just imagine what happens to our body's ability to adapt to intra-abdominal pressure. Where does it move the load for our body? We already talked about how most of our adaptability is going to be found here and then down here, okay? And so for many of us, when we're wearing shapewear that limits our ability to soften and relax here, so we're sucking in all the time, we're wearing tight shapewear, hard pants, where does that pressure go? It can come up a little bit, shoving like our stomach up, but it's mostly going to be experienced down lower into the lower part of our pelvic floor structure. In response, many people may experience things like worsening prolapse symptoms, tension, urinary incontinence. You can experience symptoms that are typically seen in people who have a hyper, which is hypertonic pelvic floor, which is where it's just basically stuck, like in a flexed position. It's not able to relax and release. And so it's limited in its ability to adapt. And so in that situation, if we have a hypertonic pelvic floor, imagining it kind of like a flexed bicep, if something gets too heavy for the load of this, what happens? We are no longer able to hold this tightness. We collapse. Woo. And in that collapse, if it happens down here in the pelvic floor, that's when you can experience incontinence, like stress incontinence, whether it's urinary or fecal. You can experience the prolapse symptoms. And so body is super smart, right? And so it's constantly shifting and adapting to these loads that are placed on it by any number of factors. So just kind of getting to know your own body. What does it feel like when intra-abdominal pressure is not kind of spread out throughout the whole abdominal wall, throughout the entire rib cage, throughout the entire pelvic floor, but it's really focused on one spot. And you can kind of see, like when I squeeze right in the middle, imagining that super tight pant, those super tight pants, just around the middle, where does that pressure go? It goes up and then down. But on a body, it's gonna be a little different because of the rib cage and stuff. And so that's gonna put even more pressure down. If our pelvic floor is stuck in a tight position, that can also, and especially, we also have pressure from up top. That's really gonna put a big load on the front abdominal wall, which is gonna make it challenging for the core, the abdominal wall, to be adaptive and reflexive when we need it to be, right? We need it to be soft, we need it to engage. Depending on our movements, it can lead to things like back pain. It can exacerbate or lead to things like diastasis recti, which is a separation of the tissues between kind of these major abdominal muscles here. Many people experience this during pregnancy, may not notice it until postpartum. It's absolutely normal to experience that during pregnancy. It's a beautiful adaptation that the tissues make. But if it sticks around, doesn't begin to be functional again post-pregnancy, postpartum, and this can take time. So much more time than we are often told. This can take time. Then it may be that intra-abdominal pressure and management of that pressure could be tweaked and adjusted to support your body in having a more functional adaptation, allowing your tissues to slowly kind of come back together, find tension and balance and release in the places that they need to. So yeah, this is just a brief introduction to intra-abdominal pressure. I hope it was helpful. If you have questions, pop them down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Again, this is not like a doctorate on the topic. It's a super surface level, hopefully layman's friendly little discussion. And stay tuned for another video where we can maybe have an embodied experience of playing with intra-abdominal pressure by breathing in different ways, by moving in a few different ways. So I'm hoping to do a video soon where we actually practice some moves and breath patterns to feel how it feels different, maybe on our core, like the abdominal wall, even the pressures up here around the diaphragm and also in the pelvic floor. So stay tuned if you're interested in that. Yeah, thank you for joining me. I hope this was helpful. Sending peace, sending love.